So, what was your initial reaction to hearing about this?
Pretty down about this. It's a bit of a waste of time, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not particularly. I think I was more or less just like, eh,
Yeah,
why?
I feel
Why?
like I feel like it's just super unnecessary. Like maybe another remaster might have worked, like just a bit of a reskin, polish up
Hmm.
kind of thing. But obviously they're just trying to bring it up to Last of Us 2 with probably a bit more mobility and things like that.
Yeah, I can't
Um,
remember where I was reading it, or maybe it was in a YouTube video that because I mean I read the Bloomberg article, but like my brain's fucking fried today. So, but yeah, so the plan apparently is to bundle it in with The Last of Us Part Two and do
mhm.
like a re-release of The Last of Us Part Two with like a PS5 sort of reskin of The Last of Us, which doesn't seem like as much of a terrible idea. But I don't know whether that's actually been clarified because I mean, Sony, I don't think has confirmed any of this. This is all just
Yeah,
sort of on the grapevine,
I think I
journalistic
think
leaks.
I think in terms of like a bit of news at the minute, it seems like it's like treading the fine line between like remaster and remake. Like, is this really a full ground up remake with potentially like different cutscenes and
Mm.
animations, or is it the same game, but visually it's just set in the engine of the second game? Because if that's the case, then it's sort of a bit of a remaster, and the word remake has just made it seem so much like worse than it is. Because if they are just bringing it up to the engine of The Last of Us 2 so you can play through it consecutively, then sort of fair enough. But if they're putting time into rebuilding assets and things like that, it seems like a bit of a waste of time. Even though
Yeah.
I'm sure people would lap it up. It's all right. Um, People like me and you working in the video games industry, and
Air quotes.
our buddy Schreier.
Yeah.
But like, I just think, yeah, it depends on what the actual official announcement is for me. But as things stand, if it's a full on remake, potentially to put it in line with the TV show, essentially, might be a bit
Yeah,
of a
well, I
stretch.
think that is the intention, isn't it? To sort of have this align with the TV show and sort of give another promotional cross-platform push.
Yeah,
But I mean, if I guess if it depends really how they frame it, but my first sort of thoughts were, why the fuck would you do this? You know, it's
yeah,
still by like most accounts, it just feels like a contemporary game. Like it's not even 10 years old yet. And
yeah,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I didn't even play the first one on PS3. I played the PS4 version of it. I've still got the PS4 version sitting in my drawer, you know? Like,
mm,
I replayed it last year and it mostly I mean, it completely holds up, you know?
yeah.
There isn't even that much of a difference between The Last of Us 2 and The Last of Us 1 in terms of the gameplay. Like,
Nah,
you
two's
know,
just particularly more polished, and especially
yeah,
when you get to playing as Abby, because Abby's essentially just a Joel reskin in part two. You know,
yeah,
she's a little bit
completely.
more mobile, but she's more like stocky, like slower built.
Mm,
Versus Ellie. Ellie's a bit more nimble. Obviously, she could do all those like bow acrobatics and diving through
yeah.
grass and 360 angles and whatnot. But um, I don't know. It's just a bit. It feels like a bit of a waste of time. I don't. What I am like disheartened by it, but I don't know if I'm necessarily like worried. I think it's just something that I'm like, oh, I probably won't care for that. Don't
Yeah.
personally see it like, or at least my initial instinct wasn't that this is substituting any releases for me necessarily.
Hmm.
The video game industry seems to churn out like one game from its core IPs like every generation anyway now. Whereas like
Yeah.
PlayStation 2, they were pumping out three or four. No, it was technically easier to do it then, but it just feels like games come out so slowly nowadays that things like this are just part and parcel. And it's
Yeah. I mean, I think it reeks a little bit of when, for me, like when they did the Amazing Spider-Man series uh, not long after they'd sort of canned the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films.
yeah,
Incidentally, Sony again.
mm,
um, you know, there wasn't enough time after the end of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films for it to feel like, oh, like this is a fresh thing that feels justified. And then it was essentially just a remake. Like it was a slightly different retelling of the first film, you know? And because of the cultural splash that the original Spider-Man films made, it felt like, you know, like that is still relevant, you know? Because I mean, like Sony the launch title for the PS5 was a remake of Demon Souls, which isn't that old. It's 2009, you know.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit older than The Last of Us, but a PS3 game. But that didn't have quite the cultural cachet that The Last of Us had. So lots of people missed out on that game, and for them, a full sort of modern, from the ground rebuild is introducing a lot of people to the game that didn't get to play it and who now have an interest in it because of the cultural success of like the succeeding like Dark Souls games. Last of Us isn't like that. Like The Last of Us is a game that is still really relevant now and is influencing the games industry profoundly still, you know. There's not a lot of people who haven't played that game, you know. So who's this for, you know?